Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting experts straight talk in your ear. These podcasts deliver great interviews with industry leaders and Zweig Group's 3 decades of invaluable research, leadership, management, marketing, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts let you develop personally and professionally, wherever you are.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited to come to you today from sunny Southern California. I'm actually here visiting with a client, but the show must go on. And I'm recording this podcast episode from my hotel room of all places because I want to share with you this idea that I had that I've been wanting to share for a while, which is this whole concept of podcasting and the importance of podcasting, what it means to me, how to get started, and also want to share with you a really cool story of how I believe our podcast has actually encouraged some other people to get their podcast started. So, I want to talk a little bit about just this whole idea of, why people would want to do a podcast. And I believe that, people are craving quality information relevant to what they do both at work and at play. And podcasting provides a great sounding board and a great solution for sharing information. Anybody can do it. I mean, I know so many people now that have podcasts that didn't have them just, 12 months ago. And so there's all kinds of great information that can be out there to share in a podcast format. And there's so many niches. And I encourage anyone that wants to start a podcast, I don't care if you're in the design industry or not, you should start one because there certainly is room for you and there's going to be an audience for you. But podcasting and also this whole idea of smart speakers, which, when I think of like Apple HomePod and Amazon Alexa and Google, the Google device that they have, I think it's iHome or something along those lines. But anyway, this is really not a episode on smart speakers, although smart speakers do play a role in this whole podcasting phenomena. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The idea here is that podcasting is here to stay. And I really want to encourage you today, if you're at a design firm, to think about creating a podcast and getting it out there to your firm and some of the benefits of doing so. And I'll walk you through some simple steps. Here at the Zweig Letter Podcast, for us, creating a podcast is as simple as having an app on your phone and a good lavalier mic, which is what I'm using right now. I'll link to what I'm using in the show notes today because I'm recording this on the road, as I said, in Santa Monica, California. And I'll also link to what I use back at the office. And I also have a great how-to tutorial when it comes to podcasting from a good friend of mine, Cliff Ravenscraft, who is the original podcast answer man. Cliff has been doing podcasting since 2005 when he came out with his Lost podcast, which was an affinity podcast for the TV series Lost. Some of you might remember that show of the folks that were stranded on a desert island after a plane crash. And I was never really a fan of Loss, but he used Loss to catapult himself into the podcasting stratosphere. And Cliff is an amazing guy, and he has a website called Podcast Answer Man, and he has a great tutorial that, even though it's a little older, is highly relevant, and it will give you a great foundation for how you get a podcast started. It's really not as hard as you think. There are a lot of different ways to record yourself, sharing information. Right now, I'm currently using AVR Pro, which is for the iPhone only, unfortunately, and I'll include a link to that on the show notes. And I have a simple Rode lavalier mic strapped to my shirt, and that is what I am talking into, and it's at an appropriate distance from my mouth so that I'm not overmodulated when I talk, and that you can understand what I'm saying. I will link to the Rode lavalier mic as well. In studio, when we're back in Fayetteville or wherever we are in and around the Fayetteville area, we normally use a Zoom H4n handheld digital recorder. And it's an amazing recorder. It's portable. I could technically take it on the road with me and use it, but I just prefer to use my iPhone because we now have this technology in our pockets. They're called smartphones. They do amazing things. They have so much space on them now. My iPhone 8 Plus has 256 gigabytes of memory. And so I can pretty much store just about anything on this thing. I record videos. I record podcasts. I have music on there. Whatever you want is available to you right at your fingertips on these smartphones. And that's another reason why podcasting is such a big deal now, is because everybody has access to great information, or at least I should say most people do. So it's something to consider. The microphone that we use in the studio is the Audio-Technica ATR 2100. It's a USB dynamic microphone. It also has an XLR input, and it works directly with the Zoom H4n digital recorder. But really, those two items are all that's required. You can certainly go upscale if you want and get a processor, soundboards, and all that other stuff. Cliff talks a little bit about that in his tutorial. But if you just want to keep it simple, this is the best way to go. A Zoom H4n digital recorder or another digital recorder of your choice, and a good, simple microphone like an Audio-Technica ATR 2100, which is, I would like to say, and I'm using air quotes here, the podcaster's microphone. It's very inexpensive. It's like $79. And it is a high quality microphone that can be used. You can take it on the road. You can use it in your office. It doesn't really matter. It's a great microphone to try out. So those are some of the tools that are required to get a podcast off the ground. It really doesn't take that much. The bottom line is that you just have to start. So with the technical part of it aside, and with the understanding that, yes, you can go out and get some of these items and get a podcast off the ground. There is no excuse. So what I want to do now is kind of lay the foundation for the importance of getting your voice out there, especially at a design firm, and how it can benefit you as an organization. But I also want to share with you some cool statistics that I ran across, because part of why I wanted to have this episode was not only to talk about podcasting, but it was also to talk about smart speakers. Amazon Alexa is everywhere. It's one of the reasons why Jeff Bezos is now the richest man in the world. Congratulations, Jeff. We're really excited. I remember hearing about Amazon when you first came out, and hearing the fact that all these bookstores were not excited about this Amazon site, and that they were never going to go away because this Amazon thing was not going to have the legs that it ultimately had. And so for those of you that are Amazon Prime members or use Amazon on a regular basis, or now shop at Whole Foods, Jeff Bezos won. And bookstores lost, unfortunately. And I'm a big bookstore lover. I love the library. I love anything about books. But Amazon has become a cultural phenomena when it comes to marketing, when it comes to just basically changing an industry overnight. And so we kind of have to embrace where we are. And part of that embracing and this idea of these smart speakers has come about just in the last couple of years. Not even 3 years, not even 2 years, like a year and a half, really, to the point where, and I want to just share some of these cool statistics on smart speakers, because it does dovetail nicely into this conversation about podcasting. Because if you have a speaker, you can listen to a podcast, right? Whether you're in your home, whether you're in your car, you can listen to it on your smartphone. But here's some statistics on smart speakers. Number one, 9% of households in the United Kingdom own an Amazon Echo just 1 year after the Echo's release. Almost 1 out of 10 households in the United Kingdom own an Amazon Echo. Pause and think about that for a second. Number two, ownership of the Amazon Echo is highest among men 25 to 44 years of age. So that's kind of the demographic of the Amazon Echo, but it is growing in other demographic groups as well. Number three, Amazon dominates the smart speaker market in the United States with 76% market share. There is the Google iHome, there is the HomePod by Apple, which are kind of behind the Amazon Echo. And so Amazon is dominating voice right now. If you don't have an Echo, you may not fully understand this, but trust me when I say that these devices are going to be in more and more homes. And I think the market saturation by 2020 is supposed to be 80 to 90%, meaning that even if somebody isn't listening to podcasts on their phone, there will be other opportunities for them to listen to podcasting in different locations, in the car and at home especially. So information is going to be consumed whether you like it or not. The question is, do you want to be out there sharing your company, sharing what you do as an organization, talking about why your firm is special and why you're different than everybody else? Because people are going to be listening. And I think it's important to think about ways for you to get the word out there about your organization. And in a few minutes, I'm going to share with you one company that has done just that. And I'm so excited to share their story because I feel like I'm part of the reason why they're doing what they're doing now. And, certainly I'm not going to take credit for it, but I do want to say that, you just have to start and you have to get something out there. And these guys did it. And I'm so proud of them. So let's move on. Number 4, smart speakers are most commonly used for playing music or listening to audiobooks. And I would say podcasting as well. I use my Amazon Alexa to listen to podcasts at home. And then number 5, almost a fifth, 17% of Amazon Echo users use their device to order items from the Amazon store. So there's so many different things that can be done with these smart speakers, with your smartphone. But the idea is that people are changing the way that they do things on a regular basis. My routine in the morning when I get up, I listen to my news flash on my Amazon Echo before I start my day. I want to know what's going on. I also follow a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk has an Alexa skill that basically shares information about him and his organization and what he's doing and one of his latest talks. And I love kind of getting that because Gary fires me up. He's a real exciting guy. He's a contemporary of mine. He's in his 40s, but he has not allowed this whole technology thing to pass him by. He has embraced it and he's using smart speakers to do so. So not only does he have a podcast, but he also utilizes Alexa skills to create very simple ways for him to share and export his podcast to different audiences. And those are some things that you can think about. But here are a couple of ways that your design firm can implement a podcast. Number 1, you can start a podcast just to share information going on at your firm or to export your firm's culture to potential clients and potential new hires. Yes, podcasting works when going out from a B2B perspective to develop new business, but it works even better in my mind when you try to export your firm's culture to let other people know, and specifically other designers and other technical people that you might want to hire to come work at your firm, this is a great calling card for your organization and what you're all about. There is a company called Big Red Dog that does this really well, and they have now unleashed their podcast. And I would venture to say that in another year or so, they will see some significant inroads from a recruiting perspective because of the podcast that they started. And I'm going to share a clip from that podcast at the end of this episode. The second thing is that you can start a podcast to highlight specific projects that you're working on with your firm. I have a saying: it's a pitiful frog that doesn't praise its own pond. If you're not talking about the amazing things that your organization is doing, and it's not so much talking about it just to be grandstanding, but it's talking about, hey, these are the projects that we're working on. These are the clients that we're working with. Here are the amazing things that our people are doing to affect change in whatever area of the country that you're working in. You need to be sharing that information. Trust me, people are listening. You can take individuals through a project from start to finish, and there will be those that will stay with you from the beginning till the end. And it's a great way to share what your organization is doing. The third thing, and this is one of my favorite things, is that if you're a larger design firm, if you're a CEO or any C-suite leader in a larger design firm, you can do an AMA or what I like to call an Ask Me Anything for your podcast, where you answer questions that a lot of the employees of your organization have. You can do this, especially as a large firm. It's a way for you to interact with everyone. You know, Mark Zweig always talks about management by walking around. If you work at a large design firm, sometimes you can't always walk around and interact with everyone. So I want to encourage you to consider doing a AMA for your podcast, for your organization, because it's a great way to share information. And that AMA can be used with potential new hires. It can be used in the onboarding process. There are a number of different ways that you can use your podcast to help you, especially from an HR perspective. And, you know, as always, with any of the stuff that I'm talking about, if you ever have questions or ever wonder, well, Randy, how could this be implemented, or how could we do this, or you talked about this on your podcast, what do you think? My information is in the show notes. You can certainly access me. You can access Mark Zweig. Reach out to us, ask us questions. We'll be more than happy to answer them. But the bottom line with a podcast for you, for your design firm, is all you need to do is just be creative and know that more people than you think will actually listen to your podcast. I think the biggest stumbling block for most people is they say, I don't want to start a podcast because I don't think people will listen. What I have to say isn't important. What you have to say is important. And it's time for you to get over that stigma of nobody cares about what I have to think. Even if you are a manager or a leader at a highly successful design firm, people want to hear from you. Trust me when I say this. I didn't think people were listening to this podcast, and I found out very quickly that was not the case. And so it certainly is exciting to hear from individuals that have been impacted by the words that you're speaking through a microphone, through your smartphone, through a smart speaker. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is just go out and do it. If you craft good content with solid production behind it, the listeners will come. It's like the Field of Dreams, right? Remember that movie? Anyway, you get the idea. So finally, I really want to give a big shout out to Big Red Dog Engineering out of Austin, Texas, for taking the plunge when it comes to podcasting. I've had Will Schneer, who is the CEO of Big Red Dog, on this particular podcast several times. As a matter of fact, he's probably the number one guest that I've had on this podcast. He's a friend. He's a fun guy. They are a very successful firm. He's hip and cool, super smart, and I just enjoy talking to the guy. But Will got together with his marketing team, including Kelly Dacon and engineer Sean Terrio-Smith, who's also been featured on the Zweig Letter podcast, to start their own podcast called Unleashed. And I'm so excited to talk about them today, because I can talk about this idea of design firms starting their own podcast, in theory, but now I can point to Big Red Dog taking action and actually making it happen. Here's a cool clip from their inaugural episode.
But without further ado, I think it goes without saying that we should kick this series off the right way with an individual who effectively personifies the culture at this firm. And frankly, he should, because it's more or less in his job description. That would be none other than the esteemed Chief Executive Officer of our firm, Will Schneer. Will, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today in our first inaugural episode. Hopefully, we get a lot of great tidbits, a lot of information that'll help our employees, anybody in the community and our industry, learn more about what makes Big Red Dog pretty great. I do want to take a moment, a point of personal privilege, if you will, to note how auspicious this is. For me personally, I found out about this firm from a podcast that you were interviewed on originally. So it is kind of ironic almost that I'm sitting across from you at a table interviewing you on the first podcast for Big Red Dog. So going first, we want to kind of set the background a bit. Let's say the year is 2009, beginning of 2009. You are a project manager at Carter Burgess. We have the stock market doing pretty poorly. Corrections are happening all over the place. Housing market bubble has burst. Barack Obama's in his first year of presidency, hasn't yet worn the tan suit yet. So cats and dogs aren't yet living together. Mass hysteria is on the rise. What is going on in your world before this company began?
For us, in Austin, I was in the Austin office of Carter and Burgess, which was actually Jacobs, just newly Jacobs at that time, in the summer of 2008. And we were very busy. We had a lot going on. I distinctly remember booking a European vacation that summer that was to occur in the fall of 2008, October of 2008. And I was looking forward to that and had some R&R before coming back to the office to end the year and finish it strong and, run through the finish line of 2008. And we got on a plane in October of 2008. I don't remember the exact day. And landed in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, a group of us on a buddy's trip to Europe. And at the time, our cell phones did not work in Europe, so we were totally disconnected from the events of the world, not exactly sitting around our hotel rooms watching the news. And, come to find out when we returned to the United States that Iceland has defaulted and Lehman Brothers has gone under and the whole world has come to an end while we were spending all of our meager young engineer savings in Europe, traipsing through the mountains and the villages of Europe. So that's kind of how the Great Recession approached me almost overnight, really. I was, everything was frothy and healthy one moment and come to work one day and almost seemingly within a day, half the work was gone and half the office was quickly gone thereafter. And, it was really a bloodbath in our industry. And, looking back on it almost 10 years later, it was a very fortuitous inflection point in my career. But there in the heat of the moment, it was certainly a sobering and scary time for a young engineer. I'm grateful that I was single without children at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had one mouth to feed, which made it a lot easier.
Yeah, and coming from a family of engineers at the time, I was in the military at that point, but many of my family and friends were in this industry, and just the trepidation and fear on many people's minds as they either lost their job or took a severe pay cut was palpable, and we were unsure if the market was ever going to rebound. So I think for a lot of folks who are in this industry who have entered it in the last 5 to 8 or 9 years even, may not understand how great we have it at the moment.
Wow. That was very, very cool. I almost had goosebumps listening to that. And I know some of you are saying, come on, Randy, don't overdo it. No, seriously, these guys have gone off and done something really cool and really fun. I think more design firms are going to take the plunge and grow and build podcasts this year and next year and the year after that. And I am excited to hear more and more of these podcasts. I've already subscribed to the Unleash podcast at Big Red Dog, and I will subscribe to others as you guys go out and create great content. So I want to encourage you, just do it. Don't wait, just do it. Again, big shout out to Will, Kelly, and Sean. You guys are making it happen, and I just want to say thank you. If you haven't heard a podcast at all, if this is your first time listening to a podcast, if there is such a thing, check out iTunes. Most of you have heard of iTunes, or Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play. There are so many different podcasting services out there where you can download a podcast episode or two of a subject matter of your choice and listen to it and let us know what you think about it. Trust me, podcasting can become very addictive. I listen to them on a regular basis. I learn new things on a regular basis. And I'll be honest with you, it has helped me do my job better because of listening to podcasting. And, it's the new book, right? I mean, I read books a lot. I'm a voracious reader of books. Some of you that are listening to this know what I'm talking about. You read all the time. Podcasting is another way to consume great content that can really be the difference maker for you as you grow both professionally and personally. And so I really want to encourage you to do that and check some things out. So anyway, take that for what it is. That is what I wanted to say today about some of the reasons why I think you should start a podcast today. And I'm encouraged by what those guys at Big Red Dog did. Check out their podcast. Let me know what you think. And, just more importantly, just figure out ways that you can implement a podcast within your organization. And if you have any questions whatsoever, if the tutorial that I shared with you from Cliff Ravenscraft doesn't help, if some of the information in our show notes with regard to tools that you can use to get a podcast started doesn't help, reach out to me via email. I'll get right back to you. You can call me. We can talk. I can walk you through the process. It's really not that difficult. But I would love to hear from you. I would love to see you get started with a podcast today and create some amazing content. There are some awesome design firms out there, architectural, engineering, landscape architecture, planning firms that are doing some amazing things. And you need to tell your story on a regular basis. So consider this the episode of encouragement to get your podcast started. If not now, when? Just want to ask you that. So that's my rant. I'm getting off my soapbox now. The last thing I want to say is, listen, we've got a special gift for you because you're a great listener to the Zweig Letter podcast. We want to give you a copy of the Zweig Letter that you can have on a regular basis. The Zweig Letter is now free digitally. You can go to zweiggroup.com, ZWEIG group.com, and plug in your email address. That's all you have to give us. We don't need blood type or anything like that. And you will get in your email inbox every Monday morning a fresh, hot off the press copy of the Zweig Letter. Trust me, 12 pages of awesome content on the design industry, on all types of firms, on all types of amazing people doing amazing things in our industry. We have amassed, Richard Massey, who's the editor of the Zweig Letter, has amassed a team of great writers, both internally, myself and other individuals within my organization. Chad Kleinens, the president of Zweig Group, Jamie Claire Kaiser, director of consulting, and so many others are writing articles on a regular basis for you. Christy Zweig, head of our marketing group. I mean, there's just so much great information out there. We specifically write about the things that we experience on a regular basis in dealing with you, the clients that are out there listening. But there are even clients out there that are writing articles for the Zweig Letter. So we really want to encourage you to get a copy of the Zweig Letter. You can get it for yourself for free. And get this, I just had a company of 600 plus people sign up for the Zweig Letter. Everybody on Monday morning in that company is now getting a copy of the Zweig Letter right in their inbox for free. That's right. You heard it here first. Get it for free. If you want to find out more about that and how you can expedite getting your whole company signed up for the Zweig Letter podcast, just reach out to me at rwilburn@zweiggroup.com and I'll get it facilitated. I'll take care of it in one day. You're done. That's it. All right. Well, that's all that I have to share today with regard to the Zweig letter. You get the point. Check it out when you get a chance. It's totally free. And the last thing I'm going to ask you is that I would love if you would do two things for me. One is share this podcast with a friend. Share this with someone that doesn't know about the Zweig letter and doesn't know about the information that we're sharing on these podcasts. And number two, I would really appreciate it if you would go to iTunes and give us a 5-star review. Remember, sharing is caring and giving good feedback is caring too. I just made that one up, but you get the idea. If you could go and give us some feedback, honest, unvarnished feedback about this Zweig Letter podcast. If you love it, if you hate it, if you think it sucks, whatever, just let us know. We want to continue to improve this process. We want to continue to improve the content that we provide, and we need to hear from you, our listening audience. So however you listen to this podcast, and in most formats, there is an opportunity for you to review the podcast. I would appreciate it if you would review it and give us 5 stars, especially if you like us, because it would be awesome to hear from you. And if we do, we'll start sharing some of those reviews that we get, whether on iTunes or elsewhere, on the podcast, and thank those individuals personally. So that's all I have today. Listen, remember this one thing. We've always at Zweig Group existed to make you more successful. That's been our mandate since day one. It was our mission statement when I first worked with the company back in the 90s. It's currently our mission statement today. We know times have changed, technology has changed, and Zweig Group has changed for that matter. But the foundation of why we're here and why we do what we do, that has not changed. We want to make you more successful, and we hope that content like this on the Zweig Letter podcast, content in the Zweig Letter, content from our surveys and other publications, the consulting that we do, this is not a infomercial for Zweig Group. The bottom line is we really do care, and we want to see firms be successful. And if you're part of that, we want to be a part of your ecosystem. We want to be a part of what you're doing to make a difference in this country, in this world, from a design perspective. So I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, okay? And we really, really appreciate you, the listening audience, and hope you enjoyed this episode of the Zweig Letter podcast. Go out and get your podcast started. What are you waiting for? I want to hear from you. Let me know how it's going. If you need help, I'm here to help you. Without further ado, I'm Randy Wilburn, and you've been listening to another episode of the Zweig Letter podcast. You guys make it a great day. Coming to you from sunny Southern California, I bid you adieu. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to this Zweig Letter podcast episode. If you want more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about M&A, strategic planning, HR, and marketing your firm, subscribe now to the digital version of the Zweig Letter free of charge. Just visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe and leave your email address. Your free subscription will begin immediately.